The aurora danced across the alien sky like liquid diamonds, but Lieutenant Nathan Reed had no time to admire the view. His reconnaissance vessel, bleeding atmosphere and trailing smoke, plummeted through the crystalline clouds of the unexplored planet. The ship's AI blared warnings in his ears as the ground rushed up to meet him. Come on, he muttered, wrestling with the controls. The vessel's experimental stealth technology had failed spectacularly when it encountered the planet's unusual magnetic field, leaving him exposed to whatever had shot him down. Multiple impacts had shredded his engines, and now all he could do was try to survive the landing. The ship crashed through a forest of towering crystal formations, each impact sending shockwaves through the vessel's frame. Nathan's head slammed against his helmet, and darkness crept at the edges of his vision. With one final devastating crunch, the ship came to rest in a clearing, its hull torn open like a tin can. Nathan hung limply in his restraints, blood trickling down his face inside his helmet. Through blurry vision, he could see the alien landscape through the shattered viewscreen, a world that seemed carved from living crystal. The trees, if you could call them that, were spires of translucent material that caught and reflected the aurora's light in dazzling patterns. He had to move. Whatever had shot him down would be coming to investigate the crash. With trembling fingers, he released his restraints and collapsed onto the cockpit floor. The emergency kit was still intact, and he grabbed it before forcing open the emergency hatch. The air that rushed in was breathable according to his suit's sensors, but had a sharp, metallic tang that made his throat tingle. Nathan stumbled away from the wreckage, his boots crunching on crystalline soil. Each step sent sparks of pain through his ribs, probably cracked, but nothing felt broken. He had made it perhaps 50 meters when he heard them, heavy footfalls that sent vibrations through the ground. Nathan ducked behind one of the crystal spires, drawing his sidearm. Through the translucent surface, he could see distorted shapes approaching the crash site. They were unlike anything he had ever seen. Towering figures, easily 8 feet tall, with bodies that seemed to be composed of the same crystalline material as their environment. Their armor, if it was armor, grew naturally from their bodies in geometric patterns that caught and reflected light like cut gems. Their movements were fluid despite their apparently rigid structure, and their eyes glowed with an inner light that shifted through various colors. Nathan held his breath as they examined his ship. Their language was beautiful and terrible, like wind chimes in a hurricane, musical notes that cut like knives. He couldn't understand them, but their agitation was clear. They were looking for him. He needed to move, to find better cover and wait for rescue. But as he shifted his weight, a small cascade of crystal shards clattered to the ground. The sound, though slight, was enough. The alien warriors turned as one, their eyes focusing on his position with predatory intensity. Nathan ran. He sprinted through the forest of crystal spires, his boots finding purchase on the treacherous ground through years of training and pure survival instinct. Energy bolts sizzled past him, turning patches of ground into molten glass where they struck. He zigzagged between the spires, using their refractive properties to confuse his pursuers' aim. But he wasn't familiar with this terrain, and they were. He turned a corner and found himself facing a sheer crystal cliff. Dead end. As he turned to double back, he found his path blocked by one of the warriors. This one was different from the others, slightly smaller but more elegant in form, with armor that flowed like liquid starlight. The warrior's eyes shifted through colors he had no names for, settling on a deep violet that seemed to pierce his soul. To his surprise, when the warrior spoke, it was in perfect English. "You are either very brave or very foolish to come here, human." The voice was feminine, musical, yet held an edge of steel. "I am Vera, First Blade of the Australian Dominion, and you are now my prisoner." Nathan raised his hands slowly, showing his empty palms. His sidearm was holstered, using it against beings made of living crystal seemed pointless anyway. "Lieutenant Nathan Reed, Earth Defense Force. I wasn't trying to intrude. My mission was purely reconnaissance." Reconnaissance is intrusion, Vera replied, taking a step closer. Her crystalline form caught the aurora's light, creating a mesmerizing display of colors. Your species has been probing our borders for months. We have been patient, but patience has limits. We're explorers, Nathan said, trying to keep his voice steady despite the pain in his ribs. We're trying to understand what's out here, to make contact with other intelligent life. We mean no harm. Vera's eyes narrowed, the violet glow intensifying. No harm? Your kind brings chaos wherever you go. We have watched your broadcasts, seen your wars, your destruction. You cannot even find peace among yourselves. That's not all we are, Nathan argued. He could hear the other warriors approaching, but something told him this conversation was crucial. Yes, we fight. Yes, we make mistakes. But we also create, we learn, we grow. We're capable of so much more than destruction. To his surprise, Vera tilted her head in what seemed like curiosity. You speak with conviction, Lieutenant Nathan Reed. But words are wind. Actions reveal truth. She gestured, and the other warriors emerged from the crystal forest, surrounding them. You will have time to prove your words. Many of my people wish to execute you immediately as a spy. I, however, find myself curious. The way she said it sent a shiver down Nathan's spine, not entirely from fear. There was something in her voice, in the way she studied him, that suggested more than simple tactical interest. Before he could respond, his injuries and the stress of the crash caught up with him. The world tilted sideways, and the last thing he saw before losing consciousness was Vera stepping forward to catch him, her crystalline form glowing like captured starlight. As darkness took him, Nathan's last thought was that if this was first contact, it was certainly going to be interesting. Nathan awoke in a chamber that seemed carved from a single massive crystal. The walls pulsed with gentle bioluminescence, casting rainbow-tinted shadows across his healing pod. His injuries had been treated with some form of advanced crystalline technology that seemed to merge with his own cells, accelerating his natural healing process. Through the translucent walls, he could see the sprawling Australian city, a masterpiece of crystalline architecture that defied Earth's understanding of physics. Massive floating spires connected by bridges of pure light stretched toward the aurora-filled sky. The entire city seemed alive, pulsing with energy that flowed through its crystalline structures like blood through veins. Your resilience is remarkable, Vera's voice came from behind him. She stood in the doorway, her crystalline form somehow softer in the chamber's light. Most species would still be unconscious after such injuries. Nathan sat up carefully, noting that while his ribs still ached, the pain was manageable. Your healing technology is even more remarkable. Thank you. Do not thank me yet, Lieutenant. Vera moved closer, her movements fluid and graceful despite her crystalline nature. The High Council demands answers, and not all share my curiosity about your kind. Just Nathan is fine, he offered, trying to establish some connection. And I'll tell them whatever they want to know. We really aren't here to cause trouble. Vera's eyes shifted to a deep blue, a color he was beginning to associate with thoughtfulness. You are an enigma, Nathan. Your species is chaotic, violent, unpredictable, yet you show wisdom and restraint. It unsettles many of my people. Maybe that's why we should be talking instead of fighting, Nathan suggested. Understanding each other's differences could benefit both our peoples. Before Vera could respond, another Australian burst into the chamber. This one's crystalline form was darker, with jagged edges that spoke of aggression. First Blade, the Council demands your presence. And the humans. Vera's form tensed slightly, her colors shifting to harder edges. Thank you, Second Blade Thorix. We will attend. She turned to Nathan. Can you walk? Nathan stood, steadying himself against the healing pod. Lead the way. The council chamber was a vast amphitheater carved into the heart of the largest crystal spire. 7 Australian elders sat in elevated positions, their forms more elaborate and intricate than any Nathan had seen yet. Their combined bioluminescence filled the chamber with shifting patterns of light that seemed to respond to their emotions. First Blade Vera, the central elder's voice resonated through the chamber like crystal wind chimes. You have taken a great risk, bringing this human here instead of executing him as our laws demand. Honored Council, Vera's voice was strong and clear. I believe this human represents an opportunity. His species is young, yes, but they possess qualities we would be foolish to dismiss. Qualities? Thorik scoffed from his position near the chamber's entrance. They are barely more than savages. Their history is written in blood. Yet they have achieved in centuries what took us millennia, Vera countered. They adapt, they innovate, they overcome obstacles that would destroy more rigid species. Her eyes flickered to Nathan. They feel deeply, and from those feelings comes strength we barely understand. Nathan stepped forward, drawing all eyes to him. Your people are amazing. Your technology, your civilization, it's beyond anything we imagined when we began exploring. But Vera's right. Our differences could make us stronger together than apart. The council murmured among themselves, their crystalline forms creating complex harmonics that filled the chamber. Finally, the central elder spoke again. You speak well, human. But words are not enough. We have received reports of more human ships approaching our space. Are they coming in peace, or is this the beginning of an invasion? Those ships are probably looking for me, Nathan explained. Standard search and rescue protocol. If you let me contact them, I can explain the situation, prevent any misunderstanding. Or signal an attack, Thorik interjected. We should destroy them now, while we have the advantage. No. Both Nathan and Vera spoke simultaneously, then looked at each other in surprise. Vera continued, violence now would only ensure conflict later. The humans would never stop coming, never stop trying to understand what happened to their own. Then what do you propose, First Blade? The central elder's tone was curious rather than confrontational. Let me take Nathan to the Edge Spire, Vera said. We can contact his people from there, establish diplomatic contact properly. I will take personal responsibility for him. The council conferred again, their harmonics rising and falling in complex patterns. Nathan found himself holding his breath, very aware that the next few moments could determine the fate of human-Australian relations, and his own future. Granted, the central elder finally declared. But be warned, First Blade. If this ends in bloodshed, the responsibility will be yours to bear. As they left the council chamber, Nathan noticed Thorik watching them with eyes that burned amber with barely contained rage. Something told him the second blade would be trouble, but right now he was more focused on Vera. Thank you, he said quietly as they walked through the crystalline corridors. For defending me in there. Vera's colors shifted subtly, displaying what Nathan was starting to recognize as embarrassment. I defended the truth as I see it. There is something about your species, about you, that challenges everything we thought we knew about the universe. They reached a balcony overlooking the city, and Vera turned to face him fully. We should leave for the Edge Spire immediately. Your ships will be here soon, and we must be ready. Vera, Nathan started, then hesitated. Why did you really save me? You could have let your warriors kill me during the chase, or executed me later according to your laws. Why take the risk? Her crystalline form caught the light of the setting sun, creating patterns of impossible beauty. Perhaps, she said softly, I too am learning to adapt. Her eyes met his, shifting to a color he had never seen before, a deep, warm purple that seemed to reach into his soul. Come. We have far to go, and time grows short. As they prepared for their journey, neither noticed Thorik slipping away into the shadows of the crystal city, his form radiating with plans of his own. The peace between their species hung by a thread, and the next few days would determine whether that thread would strengthen into a bridge or snap entirely. The journey to the Edge Spire took them through the crystal wastes, a vast expanse where even the hardy Australian flora struggled to grow. Nathan and Vera traveled in a hovering transport that skimmed over the crystalline terrain, its energy field protecting them from the harsh magnetic storms that raged overhead. "Your world is beautiful," Nathan said, watching lightning dance between crystal formations that stretched toward the sky. "Dangerous, but beautiful." "Like your species," Vera replied, her hands moving gracefully over the transport's controls. Her crystalline form reflected the storm's light, creating patterns that Nathan found increasingly mesmerizing. "We thought ourselves masters of this planet, but watching you adapt to our environment in mere days, it makes me question much of what we believed." "That's what humans do best," Nathan smiled. "We question things, adapt, evolve. It's how we've survived." A particularly violent burst of energy rocked their transport, causing Vera's form to flare defensively. Nathan instinctively reached out to steady himself, his hand landing on her crystalline arm. To his surprise, her surface was warm, almost soft, the crystal structure seeming to pulse beneath his touch. Vera's eyes shifted to that unique purple shade he'd seen before. "Your touch, it resonates differently than anything I've known." She hesitated. "Our species does not experience physical sensation the way yours does, but when you make contact, I feel more." Nathan withdrew his hand slowly, though part of him didn't want to. "I'm sorry if I made you uncomfortable." "No," she said quickly, then more softly, "no. It is different, but not unwelcome." She turned her attention back to piloting, but her colors remained in warm, subtle patterns that Nathan hadn't seen before. Their moment of connection was interrupted by a warning signal from the transport sensors. "Multiple vessels approaching," Vera announced, her warrior's focus returning instantly. "They're not following any known flight patterns." Nathan checked the readings. "Those aren't Earth ships, the energy signatures are all wrong." "Could they be your people?" "Yes," Vera's tone was grim. "But they're not responding to identification requests. This is wrong." She adjusted their course, taking them lower among the crystal formations. "Thorix. He must have gathered supporters while we were in transit." "What's their goal?" Nathan asked, though he suspected he knew. "To prevent us from reaching the Edge Spire," Vera's colors shifted to harder, military patterns. "They would rather start a war than risk peace with your kind." The first energy blast struck near their transport, sending crystalline shards flying. Vera's piloting skills were extraordinary. She wove through the natural crystal formations, using their refractive properties to confuse their pursuers' targeting systems. "There's a cavern network ahead," she said, diving toward a barely visible opening. "We might lose them in the underground passages." "Might?" Nathan grinned despite the danger. "I like those odds." Vera's form flickered with what might have been amusement. "You would." She guided their transport into the cavern mouth just as another blast scorched the crystal behind them. The underground passages were a maze of crystalline tunnels, their walls glowing with natural bioluminescence. Vera navigated them with incredible skill, but their pursuers were relentless. Energy blasts filled the tunnels with prismatic explosions, each near miss creating new crystalline formations that made navigation increasingly treacherous. "The Edge Spire has an underground entrance," Vera explained as they wove through the chaos. "If we can reach it." An explosion rocked the tunnel ahead of them, bringing down a shower of crystal shards. Vera tried to adjust their course, but a secondary blast caught their transport's wing. They spun out of control, crashing into a chamber filled with massive crystal formations. Nathan's head struck the console, but his recent healing helped him shake off the impact. "Vera. Are you all right?" "Functional," she responded, her form flickering but stable. "But the transport is finished." We'll have to continue on foot. They could hear their pursuers' vessels landing outside the chamber. Nathan helped Vera from the wreckage, noticing how her crystalline structure seemed to lean into his support. Which way to the edge spire? Vera pointed toward a narrow passage. Through there, but she was cut off by energy blasts striking the crystal formations around them. First blade. Thorax's voice boomed through the chamber. Surrender the human, and you may yet be forgiven for your treason. The only treason here is against peace. Vera called back, her voice resonating with authority. To Nathan, she whispered, the passage will take you to the edge spire. Go. Complete the mission. Not without you, Nathan said firmly, drawing his sidearm. It might be useless against their crystalline forms, but he wasn't leaving her to face them alone. Vera's eyes met his, that deep purple color swirling with other shades he couldn't name. You continue to surprise me, Nathan of Earth. She drew her own weapon, an elegant blade that seemed to be an extension of her crystalline form. Together then. Thorix and his warriors emerged from multiple tunnels, their forms jagged and aggressive. How touching, he sneered. The first blade has been corrupted by human weakness. You disappoint our entire species, Vera. No, Vera's voice was strong and clear. I show our species a path forward. You cling to fear and isolation, but the universe is changing. We must change with it. Then die with your human, Thorix raised his weapon. Let your shards serve as a warning to those who would weaken us with peace. The chamber erupted into chaos. Nathan and Vera moved as one, using the crystal formations for cover as energy blasts and crystalline weapons filled the air with deadly beauty. Their opponents had numbers, but Nathan's human adaptability and Vera's warrior skills proved a formidable combination. As they fought, Nathan noticed something extraordinary. Where his skin made contact with Vera's crystalline form, both of them seemed to move with enhanced coordination, as if they were sharing some kind of resonance. Together, they pushed back their attackers, making their way toward the escape tunnel. This isn't over, Thorix raged as they reached the passage entrance. Your human ships approach. When they see their scout's broken body, they will attack, and I will have my war. You're wrong, Nathan called back. About humans, about change, about everything. We're stronger together than apart, Vera helped me understand that. Maybe someday you will too. They fled into the passage as Thorix's furious roar echoed behind them. As they ran, Nathan realized he was still holding Vera's hand, their forms resonating in harmony. Whatever waited at the edge spire, they would face it together, human adaptability and Australian strength united against those who would choose war over understanding. The edge spire lived up to its name. The crystalline tower rose from the planet's surface like a sword piercing the aurora-filled sky, its tip disappearing into the swirling magnetic storms above. Nathan and Vera emerged from the underground passage into its base, their breathing heavy from their escape. The communication array is at the top, Vera said, her crystalline form pulsing with exertion. We must hurry. Your ships will be within weapon range soon. They rushed to the gravity lift, a column of pure energy that would carry them to the spire's peak. As they stepped into it together, Nathan felt the strange resonance between them intensify. The lift responded to their combined presence, accelerating faster than normal. This is unprecedented, Vera observed, her eyes shifting through shades of wonder. The spire's systems are responding to our unified energy signature. Such harmony between species should be impossible. Maybe impossible is just another limit waiting to be broken, Nathan replied, watching levels blur past them. Like the impossible idea of a human and an Australian warrior fighting side by side. Vera's form shimmered with what he now recognized as pleasure. Or feeling what we feel. Before Nathan could respond, alarms blared throughout the spire. They reached the communication center to find its crystalline consoles alive with warning signals. Through the transparent walls, they could see multiple ships entering the atmosphere, both human vessels searching for Nathan and Australian ships under Thorix's command. "They're on an intercept course," Nathan observed grimly. "One wrong move from either side and this becomes a war." "Then we must give them the right move," Vera said, moving to the main console. Her hands danced over the crystal controls, establishing channels to both fleets. "But Thorix will try to stop us. He'll be coming." As if summoned by her words, explosions rocked the lower levels of the spire. Security feeds showed Thorix and his followers fighting their way up through the tower's defenses. "How long can those defenses hold them?" Nathan asked, helping Vera calibrate the communication array. "Not long enough," she replied. "The spire's automated systems were designed to defend against external threats, not our own kind. Thorix knows all their weaknesses." Nathan looked between the approaching fleets and the security feeds showing Thorix's advance. "Keep working on the communications. I'll try to slow them down." "Nathan," Vera caught his arm, her touch sending that now familiar resonance through them both. "You cannot match their crystalline forms in combat." He smiled. "Maybe not. But humans are good at improvising." He squeezed her hand. "Trust me." Her eyes swirled with emotion. "I do. More than I ever thought possible." Nathan moved to the spire's environmental controls. The tower's systems were complex, but they responded to his touch in ways that seemed to surprise even Vera. He began rerouting power, changing atmospheric pressures, and manipulating gravity fields in the levels below. Thorix's forces found themselves fighting against suddenly hostile environment. Gravity shifted unpredictably, atmospheric pressure made their crystalline forms creak, and power surges disrupted their energy weapons. They still advanced, but slowly, buying precious time. "The fleets are almost in range," Vera reported. "Communications are ready, but..." The spire shook violently. Thorix had detonated charges in the lower structure, destabilizing the entire tower. Cracks began appearing in the crystal walls around them. "No!" Vera's hands flew over the controls. "The array is losing alignment. Without a perfect signal, they'll never believe our transmission is authentic." Nathan looked at the failing systems, then at Vera. "Your crystalline form can channel energy, right? That's how your technology works?" "Yes, but..." Her eyes widened as she understood. "Nathan, no. Using your organic form to complete the circuit could kill you." "Could," he smiled. "But humans are surprisingly hard to kill." He moved to her side. "We've been resonating since we first touched. Let's see what that really means." The fleets were moments from engagement. Thorix's forces were breaking through the last defenses. Everything hung on this moment. Nathan took Vera's hands, and the world exploded into light. Their resonance, merely a subtle connection before, became a roaring symphony. His consciousness merged with her crystalline matrix, organic and mineral flowing together in ways that defied physics. Pain lanced through him as his body conducted energies it was never meant to channel, but he held on. Through their connection, he felt Vera's awe, her fear for him, and something deeper, emotions her species had never known they could feel. Together, they became a bridge not just between technologies, but between ways of being. The communication array flared to life, more powerful than ever before. Their unified message reached both fleets, carrying not just words but the truth of their connection. The human ships recognized Nathan's authentication codes. The Australian vessels responded to Vera's authority as First Blade. Both fleets halted their approach. "This is Lieutenant Nathan Reed of the Earth Defense Force," Nathan managed through gritted teeth, his body glowing with conducted energy. "And First Blade Vera of the Australian Dominion. We stand together, proof that our species can find harmony. Stand down. Choose peace. Do not listen." Thorix's voice boomed from below as he finally reached their level. The human has corrupted our first blade. This abomination must not. He stopped, staring in wonder at Nathan and Vera. Their combined energy had transformed the communication center. Crystals sang in harmony with organic matter, creating patterns of light and life never seen before on any world. Where their hands met, something new was being born, a perfect fusion of human adaptability and Australian strength. This is what you feared, Dorix? Vera's voice resonated with power and compassion. Not weakness, but evolution. Not corruption, but growth. Through their connection, Nathan felt the moment Thorix's resonance changed. The second blade fell to his knees, his crystalline form reverberating with understanding. Above them, the fleets began broadcasting acknowledgments of peace. But victory had its price. As the energy surge faded, Nathan collapsed. Vera caught him, cradling his burned form with desperate gentleness. "Stay with me," she whispered, her colors rippling with fear and another emotion, one her species had never had a name for until now. "We won. We showed them a better way. Please, stay." Nathan looked up at her, managing a weak smile. "Humans, we're too stubborn to die when things finally get interesting." His hand traced the patterns of light still moving through her crystalline form. "Besides, I think we've still got a lot to teach each other." As consciousness faded, he felt her essence still resonating with his. Their connection had changed everything, not just for them, but for both their species. Whatever came next would be unprecedented, impossible, and absolutely worth surviving for. The last thing he heard was Vera calling for emergency medical transport, her voice carrying both command and caring. The last thing he felt was that resonance, humming between them like a promise of things to come. Then darkness took him, but not before he witnessed the aurora above shifting into that same deep purple shade he'd first seen in Vera's eyes, the color of two worlds finding harmony at last. Nathan floated in a sea of crystal light. Time had lost meaning, but awareness gradually returned through a symphony of resonant frequencies. He opened his eyes to find himself suspended in a healing chamber unlike any before. The crystal matrix surrounding him pulsed with both Australian energy and something new, traces of human bioelectricity that danced like aurora through the lattice. "Welcome back," Vera's voice drew his attention. She stood beside the chamber, her crystalline form glowing with relief. "You've been unconscious for 3 planetary cycles. Did we?" Nathan's voice was rough but steady. "Did it work? See for yourself." Vera waved her hand, and the chamber walls turned transparent, revealing a view that took his breath away. The crystal city had transformed. Human ships hovered peacefully among Australian vessels, their different technologies working in harmony. On the ground, he could see human diplomatic teams walking alongside Australian guides, their interactions marked by curiosity and respect rather than fear. "The resonance we created," Vera explained, helping him sit up as the healing chamber opened, "it showed both our people something they never thought possible. The Council has authorized the first official diplomatic exchange. Your Admiral Reeves and our High Elder are drafting a treaty as we speak." Nathan stood carefully, noticing something strange about his movements. His skin held a subtle crystalline sheen, catching light in ways human flesh never had before. "What happened to me?" "Your sacrifice at the Edge Spire changed you," Vera's voice held wonder. "The energies we channeled, they didn't just flow through you. They became part of you. The healers say you're still human, but evolved. The first of your kind to achieve partial crystalline integration." He flexed his hand, watching light ripple beneath his skin. "And you? Did it change you too?" Vera stepped closer, and the resonance between them hummed to life, stronger than ever. "Yes. My people were wrong about emotion making us weak. What I feel now, it makes me stronger than I've ever been." The door chimed, and Dorix entered. The second blade's form had changed, his once jagged edges now flowing in more harmonious patterns. He bowed deeply to them both. First Blade. Lieutenant Reed. The Council requests your presence. The human diplomats wished to discuss the possibility of establishing a permanent embassy here. And... He hesitated, his colors shifting in what Nathan now recognized as embarrassment. I wish to personally apologize for my actions. I was blinded by fear of change. You showed me a better path. Fear of change is natural, Nathan said, remembering his own first shocking encounter with the Australians. What matters is being willing to move past it. Vera's hand found his, crystal meeting crystalline-infused flesh in a dance of light. Shall we show them what that looks like? They walked together through the city, their unique resonance drawing attention from both species. Human scientists conferred with Australian scholars, sharing insights about the physical changes Nathan had undergone. Engineers from both worlds already worked on designs for hybrid technologies that could benefit all. The council chamber, when they reached it, had been modified. Human chairs now sat alongside crystalline platforms, symbolizing the equal partnership both species sought to build. Admiral Reeves, a stern-faced woman with silver hair, broke into a rare smile at seeing Nathan. Lieutenant Reed, she said warmly. Your actions at the Edge Spire may have changed the course of human history. We've already learned more about potential human evolution in 3 days of peaceful exchange than in a century of scientific research. The High Elder's voice chimed in harmony. And our people have discovered capacities for growth and adaptation we never knew we possessed. The resonance you and First Blade Vera created has opened possibilities we are only beginning to understand. Which brings us to the matter at hand, Admiral Reeves continued. We're establishing an interspecies research and diplomatic center here. We need leaders who understand both worlds, who can help guide us through this transformation. She looked meaningfully at Nathan and Vera. Interested? Nathan felt Vera's resonance pulse with excitement that matched his own. I think, he said, squeezing her hand, we might be uniquely qualified for that position. Later, they stood on a balcony overlooking the city, watching the aurora paint the crystal spires in waves of color. Nathan's partially crystalline form caught the light in ways that complemented Vera's natural radiance. I never imagined, Vera mused, when I made the choice to spare you that day, that it would lead to this. My people thought we were complete, unchanging. You taught us that true strength lies in being willing to evolve. And you taught us that what we thought were hard limits were just stepping stones to something greater, Nathan replied. He turned to face her fully. I don't know exactly what I am now, not fully human anymore, but not Australian either. Something new. Something better. Vera's eyes swirled with that deep purple that had come to mean so much. The first of many bridges between our peoples. Her crystalline form resonated with emotion that now felt as natural as breathing. When I first called you my prisoner, did you ever think we'd end up here? Nathan laughed, the sound creating ripples of light in his crystalline-infused skin. Well, humans do have a saying, love finds a way. Love, Vera tested the word, her form glowing brighter. Yes. That's the emotion we never had a name for. The one you taught us to feel. She moved closer, their resonance building between them. I think I like it. Above them, the aurora shifted into that same deep purple, as if the very sky celebrated their union. In the city below, humans and Australians worked together, building a future neither species could have imagined alone. And on their balcony, two beings who had dared to break every rule their peoples had known held each other, their combined light promising that this was just the beginning. Their resonance sang between them, a harmony of crystalline strength and human adaptability, of ancient wisdom and endless possibility. They had not just built a bridge between worlds, they had become one. And in that becoming, they had shown both their peoples that the greatest adventures, the most profound discoveries, and the deepest connections often begin with a single choice: to see beyond the surface, to find beauty in difference, and to believe in impossible things. The future stretched before them, as infinite as the stars above and as bright as their combined light. Whatever challenges it held, they would face them together, not as human and Australian, but as something gloriously, impossibly new.